according to your submission, you seem to have a lot of faith and confidence in the latest INEC guidelines. And I just want to ask you, in view of, past issues as it relates to the implementation of law, do you not have any concerns that even if you put it in law on paper, that ultimately politicians who have the kinds of influence over these institutions can afford to essentially choose to undermine some of those provisions, given the fact that they have institutional cover?
I believe they will try, but then I have confidence that it will reduce. Like if you have, for example, if you have a problem, that is, if you have a crime that is committed by 50 people, with the guideline, you are likely to reduce it to 25. And then secondly, whoever goes to court to seek redress, if he gets a good lawyer, the lawyer knows how to go about it. Where, for example, if a public officer, under oath, you state all the information you provided to let's say INEC, and now you're failing, or INEC is failing to produce that because a politician has influence over them, you have a recourse in court. You see, we do not have confidence in our judicial system or judiciary system in Nigeria because we think it takes long, we think the judge will be bribed. And that's why we don't go to court. Even this procedure for the impeachment of the Senate president, it does. But you see, when we keep pushing, and then the people in the media bring it as a talking point, over time, why do you think there are aspects of law that are considered as of public interest? The judges are also influenced by that, because the law must be that which is popular with the society. The law must be that which is accepted by the society.
Let's look at this particular, how does all of this, how will it affect political thuggery? Because what politicians, some of them do is, yes, they may look at the law, they always look for this lacuna, this loophole. They think, look, if I carry out this particular action, I know that I'm looking at the time frame to influence things, to get my results, and then yes, we'll meet in court at the end of the day, because we hear them say, don't worry, you can go to court, we'll meet that. How do you ensure that that particular process, even if they carry out that action, people will still come back and get justice as a result of what has been done?
Right. Sometimes you don't get scared because you don't stop taking a step because you are scared it may not work. Sometimes it's when you take the step before you see how much you've achieved, even if it is not ultimate, but it's to an extent. Now, political thuggery in Nigeria has become a norm. That sometimes it is carried out on your behalf, and then you give a tacit approval, or sometimes you pretend not to know that it is carried out in your favor. But it is a crime, and it is punishable by law. The thuggery can involve assault, it can involve murder, it can involve anything. But let me also tell you the problem with Section 24 of the Electoral Act. Liable to punishment, maximum fine 500,000, or imprisonment of 12 months or both. Now, assuming a particular person, a thug, is identified to carry out an operation that will benefit the outcome of an election, the politician knows that if the maximum punishment is 500,000, he can afford to bring the 500,000. But and then in Nigeria, we also do not consider the danger of imprisonment, that once you are convicted, you cannot vie for public office until a certain period. Once you are convicted, it affects your future. People don't even bother. People don't even care, because before you will be convicted in a matter, the next election will come, and nobody will even pursue. Because the way Nigeria is now, institutions are not allowed to pursue criminal justice in the way they come. Assuming EFCC is investigating ABC, and they have gone far in investigation, suddenly one that involves public attention, it will carry media coverage, now comes. They will leave this one and attend to the other one. Or even if they are attending to all of them, emphasis will now be more on this, and nobody talks about it.
One of the issues that comes up in relation to what you're saying is, when you look at how some of these very critical institutions that would really implement some of these, or go to implement some of these provisions, look at what has happened recently. Just one example comes to my mind when you saw, like literally days after Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom defected from the ruling All Progressives Congress to the PDP, we saw all of a sudden new information come out from the EFCC about money that was potentially stolen, etc., etc. Now, it seems to be this trend, this running narrative, that if a corrupt person's list comes out, the individuals on that list tend to be from a particular political segment, right? How much of what we're talking about has to do with the ability of an institution like the EFCC to be truly independent of politics and to be able to implement those provisions in a way that is clearly seen by the public as not being influenced to be doing the bidding of the executive. Because this is something that we've seen since its establishment in 2003.
Right. Now, let me tell you this, and I say it with every sense of responsibility. What makes democracy work is we have what they call the fourth estate of the realm. You guys, the people in the media. Now, sustained pressure can only be put by the media for the government to do what is right. Let me give you an example. And the way scandal lasts in Nigeria is no more than 2 weeks. Anything that breaks out now after 2 weeks, they will just tell themselves, the politician, endure it for 2 weeks, it will be over. Because by tomorrow morning, you know, and you kill a scandal by the next scandal. Now let's assume, and it is happening in Nigeria. That is a strong allegation against, for example, the APC or even the EFCC. When you engage some of these guys, to be honest, who give their lives working in this institution, they truly want to make the institution work. But that is the extent to which they can go. There is a stronger political influence on them. I will give you, Gospel like Pabio, who is a subject of investigation, has moved. Now he's a saint, right? There are individuals who have moved to APC who are currently under investigation or prosecution. Their cases are not moving. Same thing happened in 2015. People who moved to PDP at the time also were covered. So there is still that institutional challenge here and there. The people that will pressure the government to obey institutions are the media. I will give you an example. If something comes up now and you break it out and you talk about it tomorrow morning, talk about it the next day, and another one breaks out in the Nigerian setting, and I'm not saying that to accuse channels, but generally in the Nigerian setting, there's a tendency for you to cover because you can't let an issue like that go. But in covering it, you're forgetting that. Imagine Russian interference in the US election. Almost 2 years, it is still an issue by CNN, CNBC, and the rest, except Fox, of course, which is working for President Donald Trump. They stayed on it. And even though they could not achieve to show that specifically there is an interference, they were able to show that there was an effort. It has now led to hydra-headed issues in the government of the United States, only because the media stayed on the matter. Assuming in EFCC's case, for example, they are prosecuting somebody, and then suddenly he moves to the political party that is the ruling party, and the media stay put on the issue. Every day, no matter whatever you cover, you still bring that into the fore. When it stays consistently, it affects public policy.
Very quickly, when you talk about the example of Donald Trump and the American media and how they're using it, I think it's worth noting that in the United States, when somebody issues a freedom of information request to some of these institutions, that information must come out. In Nigeria, you issue that request, look at what's happening in the NYSC right now. This is what happens in Nigeria. So how does the media keep the spotlight on an issue when they're being denied information by the institutions that must provide that information but are choosing not to?
And the answer is just simple. And I will take the case study that you just cited, the NYSC. A newspaper man, a media man breaks the information out that this finance minister forged her certificate. It went around social media, there was a conversation around it. Government remained numb. Any issue that government is quiet about, there is an element of truth. This is what is in strategic studies, this is what they talk about. If I say something against you and you didn't do it, you will be all out trying to defend yourself and deal with me. If I say something and you're quiet about it, to an extent there is an admission. And of course, even in law, admission like that. So take, for example, this one now. If the media stayed on it, you apply to NYSC for the production of the document and they fail to do it. You go to court to seek an order. The media cover it and they continue to follow it up on the matter. The government will have to react, or they will have to act, or they will have to sanction.
That's if the tenure has not expired first, though.
All right, there you go. Well, that's how we have to end it this time. Daniel Bwala is a legal practitioner and a member of Barrister Lincoln's Inn. Thank you for coming on this morning.
My pleasure as always. Thank you.
Let's go to Lagos. They're continuing from there.